Hey everybody, welcome to this special masterclass session with my friend Richard Groenewold. It's so cool to have Richard on again. A very popular session. I remember last year we went for like almost 2 hours. I think it's so many great questions. So really enjoy having Richard on. And today we're going to talk about the most important traits to look for in strings, and also we'll talk about rackets as well. So Richard, first off, thanks so much for coming on. And how have you been?
Hey, thank you so much, my friend. It's such a great experience to be here with you. What you are doing for tennis is really amazing because this tennis summit is really needed. Not everyone can be traveling around the world to go to the conferences or symposiums or else, but having the tennis summit that you create, it's such an unbelievable thing. I think we all learned so much from tennis this week through all the conferences that like your invited uh, exponents give. Thanks so much for that.
No, thank you. I appreciate the kind words, and thanks to all the great coaches and experts like yourself. So, yeah, I mean, we're obviously here to talk about the most important traits, about strings and talk about rackets. So, I guess I guess a lot of the problem stems from players. I mean, they're not using the right sorts of gear, right? So, I mean, how many players would you say on average, percentage wise, maybe aren't using the right sorts of rackets and
Okay,
strings?
it's really interesting because we were uh, 3 years ago, before the pandemic started, we were trying to figure this out. So we went to a tournament league, a 4.5 league, and we were talking to the players and they were telling us this, and we were looking at them. So it was not only just the idea of they telling us what they think, because they could believe they are the most powerful players and they're really a pusher, right? But I mean, like, when you get to see them, you see the type of game they have, and then you see the type of racket they're using. It is amazing. I mean, like, there's so many
Mhm.
fans of Roger Federer using Roger Federer racket, but their type of game, it's completely not close to what Federer game is like. They're not as explosive in game. They're not trying to make so many winners when they are playing. So the type of racket that they're using, of course, it's the racket from their favorite player, but it is really not the racket related to the type of game. So we figure out in that time that it was 60%, around 60% of amateur players. Okay, I'm not talking about professional players. I think professional players have gone a little bit further down the road and tried to find exactly the right racket for them. But in amateur players, it was around 60%.
Mm.
Now, I mean, that was amazing from my point of view, like, because even me, in all my years, I used Babolat Pure Aero, and before that, I
Mhm.
was using the Radical, and afterwards, I ended up using the Speed Racket. And then a friend of mine who's a professional player in doubles, he's like 60 ATP right now. He recommended me Volkel rackets, and he showed me he was using the VCL 8, and I was like, for no reason I'm gonna use a brand that has such a weird name. Like, that sounds like really weird. But I tried it and it was really amazing, because that's when I realized that I wasn't using the right racket for my type of game. I was already good in control, and having more power was the perfect thing for me to do. So when I changed to these vocal rackets, my game improved so much in a little period of time. And that's when I realized that I was completely mistaken by using other rackets in the past that I was using just because of the brand, not actually because they were suited for my game. Now, the most interesting thing on the subject that I am most passionate about are tennis strings. It happened to me the same. I was using any type of string I could find. In some occasions, I was using the cheaper one, not
Mm.
not even the best quality one. And then when I tried a professional quality tennis string, I realized how much better it made me feel and play the tennis court. Like, I couldn't believe that some shots that I usually hit out was getting in. So that's when I realized that strings are really similar to the racket in the type of, or in the idea of many players using the wrong racket for their game. I think in strings it's even worse because in many cases they go to the tennis store, they know nothing, and they say, "Hey, put me whatever you have," and they actually put them, the string that they have the most of, or the string that they're making the most profit out of, So of course, it's really difficult when you go to a tennis store. You're not going to have a professional coach sitting there saying, "Okay, sir, let me see your forehand, let me see your backhand, let me see how you're hitting your serve. Okay, this is the perfect string for you." You're not going to find that, and because you're not going to find that, it's really common that is your coach putting you the string that he recommends, or it's the tennis store, or you just bought a string for you because you went to a the tennis store, you got into Tennis Warehouse, you saw that they had a buy one get one free, and then you bought that string and then you stuck to it. And I'm not saying that the string that the player is using is bad. Okay, let me tell you, I'm a professional photographer, and when I was studying photography in New York in I think it was 1998, one of the lessons that we had was about the optics of the camera, and they were telling us, look, the the cheapest lens right now is better than the most expensive lens from 1950. Okay, over in that time it was made handmade and this and that, but nowadays they're made through computer and they didn't have any flaws or anything. So probably the same case, the worst copolyester nowadays is better than the best copolyester in 1988, right? So of course that means that you're not using the wrong string. It just you're not using the right string for your game. Okay, and that's where it gets really interesting. Uh, do you have one of those charts that I sent you, Merbrand, about the attributes, a comparison chart of 4 different strings?
Yeah, let me bring that up real quick. Yeah, for sure, I can bring that up. Let's see here. Maybe if I
We're
can
gonna
download it. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, we're gonna bring this up just to show you the different attributes that Stringpedia, which is the biggest tennis string lab in the world, there are actually, I didn't know if there's any other string lab in the world that is publishing all these results about the different attributes in a tennis string. And this is really important for me. I don't think these are all the attributes in a tennis string, but we can see here some of the most important ones. And that's why I want to tell you about each one of these attributes and what do they mean and how could they make you play better if you are understanding these attributes and looking for the right attributes for you. Okay,
Yeah.
so in the top you're going to see it says power. Okay, and this is really interesting because the 4 string that we're comparing here are copolyester strings. Okay, and you can see the power here at 80, 80 in 2 of these strings, 75 and 70 in the other string. Okay, so what does this means? First of all, that copolyester strings, and it is really important to understand that a lot of people think that they're using polyester, okay, which is actually copolyester, because there is polyester out there. Okay, and actually it's difficult to notice if it's a polyester or a copolyester because it can be painted, it can be a color black, and then you would think that all the black colors are exactly the same, which they're clearly not. Now, you can see here that the power level from these strings that I'm comparing is from 70 to 80, okay? This means that you're not gonna really find a copolyester string being 100 in power, okay? I think we have one in our strings from Genesis, which is 90. I think that's a true grid. But still, it's really difficult to find a really great power string in a copolyester string. But this is not the case with natural God and some multifilaments and microfilaments out there. Some of them are 100 in power, which means they produce so much power, which is really important for people that have a lot of control and they want to take their game to the next level. You have to find the best power possible. Of course, there are strings that are not professionals, because I tried to compare here four strings that are of professional level, like professional players use this type of strings that I put here. And the level here is 80, 75, 70. And that is really good for a copolyester, because there are copolyester strings rated at 50, at 40, which are really not good in power, okay? Now, when are you going to be looking for a powerful string? Always try to find more power if you're a control-oriented player, Let's say they call you a pusher, okay? So you get a lot of balls in. That means you're a control-oriented player. Try to find a string that brings more power to your game, okay? In this chart, I think we can see that Hexonic Power and Luxilon Power, they have 80 in power. Those are better, powerful strings for you. You have to
Hmm.
look for more power because you're already getting a lot of balls in. So just imagine just getting them in a little bit harder, that
Hmm.
after the ball bounce, it will bounce faster for you. That's perfect for you, that's actually what I think you should use. Now, as well, there are certain players that are probably not great in control, but they are crazy about power, okay? And what do I mean? I mean me, I love hitting the ball as hard as possible, and I'm sure there's a lot of you guys right now listening at us that love to hit the ball fast, like the speed. We have something about speed, we love the speed. So having a powerful string is good for you, but always only if the string that you're using has a lot of control as well, okay? Because let's say here that we're seeing that the Luxilon Alu Power Rough, the control level is like 70, okay? So it has a lot of power, which is, oh, I think it's 75 actually. So the Luxilon Alu Power Rough, that's the string that Federer uses, and I think Djokovic was using it. I'm not completely sure that he's still currently using it, but he was using it. So if you want a lot of power, but you are not controlling anything, try to get a string that has more control, because that string will help you in your journey for speed to have to make more balls in. At the end of the day, it is the balls in the ones that are going to help you uh, win the game. Okay, I mean, if you don't get the ball in, then you lose the game, right? And how many games you were playing, it was match point, uh, and then your ball went out just by little, just an inch, and then after that you lost the match. What about if you would have get that ball in? What what would you give to get that ball in? And that is the difference between using a control oriented string or using a string that is poor in control. Okay. Now, in this case, in this chart that we are comparing four different strings, we can see that Hexonic Power is rated at 100 in control, which is really amazing. There are not that many strings out there that are rated that high in control. And we have another string that has 100 in control here, which is the Hyper G, okay? So this is important because Hyper G is one of the best selling strings in the US, So I want you to know that this string has 100 in control as well, which is really good, for players that already have power, and they need this extra control, they will have that control with the Hyper G and with the Hexonic Power. But if they're looking for that extra control and they are using this string from Bevel at RPM Blast Rough or Luxilon Alu Power Rough, they won't get that control. Now, but you think, but Federer was controlling amazing. Yes, Federer was amazing controlling the ball. Okay, so he was able to put that control that the string was not giving to him. But besides that, he was using natural gut in the mains, and in the crosses he was using Loxyline low power rough. That's what I've heard from stringers that strung to him, but I never saw his racket. So I just say something that I was told, okay? So in case someone says you're completely crazy, I could probably be completely nuts because that was not from firsthand, somebody told me this. Now, if you're using natural gut in the mains and then Loxolin in the crosses, that is perfect because remember that Pete Sampras used to put little things in his racket, in his strings, for their strings
Hmm.
not to be moving. Well, Federer never used those ones, right? That was because he was using a copolyester in the crosses. So these copolyesters have a material that makes the strings to be slippery. So the natural gut was getting back to its regular position after each shot, and that was the reason why he could use natural gut and this one in the crosses. And actually, probably the power control and everything else was coming more from the natural gut and not from Loxel and L Power Rough. Okay. Now, I want you to know something. This is a subject that it has brought to being brought to my attention several times, and they told me, "What do you call hexonic power? Hexonic power if it has 80 in power and 100 in control? Why aren't you calling it hexonic control?" Let me tell you why. When I was play testing it, when I sent it to other players to play test it, and there were professional players, they were saying, "Oh, I'm hitting the ball amazingly hard, and all my bolts are getting in." So we thought it is amazing because it's a really powerful string that has really good control as well. And actually, these guys were the guys that were putting the power in the ball, and they were getting all the balls in because the control was 100. Okay, so this was really interesting. But as well, if you can see, like the Hyper G has 70 in power and 100 in control. So let's say you were using the Hyper G and then you play tested this one, you would have more power, and that's why we call it hexonic power, because all these guys that are ATP players that were telling me the power is unbelievable in this string. Okay, and maybe because some of them were in college and all that, they were probably using Hyper G. So the comparison point that they
Yeah.
had was this one, and they were getting more power. So that was probably the reason why its name ended up being a hexonic power. Okay. Now, the
Nice.
next point that everyone loves to talk about is spin. Okay. Now, of course, we're all crazy about spin. Like who doesn't like spin? Like who doesn't like to hit their ball and see the ball going up, 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 and
I love it.
everyone's thinking that it's going out, and then boom, it lands in the line. We all love that, of course.
Hmm.
It is amazing. So, in this case, part of the study that we do every time we are producing a new string, developing a new string, play testing any new prototype, is to try to have 4 points more than any other points, 4 points that are really important for us: power, control, spin, and comfort. Okay. And this comfort is really important because, from my personal point of view, I hate any player, using our strings or not, to get injured because they were using the wrong string for them, So we're always trying to bring in more comfortable strings. Okay. Now, we were talking about spin. So what's the best spin that a string can generate? In this case, string PD rates from 0 to 100. So 100 is the biggest spin they can generate. They don't have 110, but 100 means that because of the way they test the strings, and because of how they see how the ball spins and else, they can know when when a ball is spinning the right way or not. So there are strings that are 15 spin, but the spins that we are comparing today are all really high in spin. It is really interesting because in all this time, I've heard so many players saying, "Oh no, I need an octagonal string. That's the best spin that I can generate." Okay, it sounds amazing. I love the idea. It's even romantic. The idea eight corners means amazing. Like you're gonna generate a lot of spin. Well, this string hexonic power is hexagonal, which means 6 sides, and Hyper-G has 4 sides. And then Alu Power Rough, which I think it has 95 in spin, is actually circular strings that has bites on it. So it doesn't not have any
Mm.
sides. And at the end, we have the RPM Blast Rough, which it has a really great level of spin, I think 90. But this means that we are comparing 4 strings that have different shapes, and they are all rated really good at spin, okay? And you could have a string that has 8 sides, 10 sides, or 20 sides, and probably the spin could be 85. And you know why? Because the spin is not only generated by the shape of the string, and this is really interesting because it blew my mind. After all these years, I felt into the idea of a hexagonal string or a twisted string being better for spin. And eventually, after all these play testings and after all these comparison charts from Stringpedia, I found that Black Magic 1.29, which is a circular string, it has no shape or no sides at all, was 95 in spin. And then we created a new string called New, actually, from Genesis as well, and it has 95 in spin as well. And it's completely circular. It does not have any sides. So imagine this. The idea of the shape being the one that generates spin is just an idea that had been sold to us. And it had been sold really good, because I fell
Yeah,
for it and probably everyone
me
else
too.
is falling for it. Exactly. But then I have hexagonal strings in Signum Pro and in Genesis that are lower in spin than these other ones that I'm talking about. And that was shocking for me, but still, it is really good. I mean, if you compare any of these copolyester strings shaped or not, compared to natural God, microfilament, multifilament, you're going to see that those ones have like 60, 70 in spin. I mean, those are really bad strings for generating spin. So if you compare one of those strings to these copolyesters, then yes, of course, the copolyester will have more spin, and that's what everyone needs or wants, right? The spin. Now, there's one attribute here that is not listed, and I think it is important. It's not only the spin which is important, because there are some strings that when I hit spin, it's amazing. I see how the ball lands perfectly, but when I hit slice, the ball is not landing the way I want it to be. Even more when I'm trying to hit heavy slice. Like remember Federer would make a lot of points, would get their opponent in a lot of trouble by hitting that heavy slice, when they were, off their center. And that was really important. That was a shot that probably made a lot of matches for Roger Federer. So spin and slice are completely different things. And a string that generates a lot of spin does not necessarily means that generates the best slice possible. Okay. It is a fact that I haven't studied here at Stringpedia, but every time I try a string, a new prototype, I use it for spin and then I use it for slice, and then I take the idea of how good it was for producing slice as well. So if the slice is really bad and I see a lot of bolts going out, then I don't really want it, because I don't want the players using our brands, both Genesis or Signum Pro, to be complaining about, not liking a string for a specific reason. Okay. So we are
Mm.
always trying to have strings that have the complete different attributes in a string for every player to be comfortable with them. Okay. Now, as I just said the word comfortable, then we need to speak about comfort, which is a really important attribute. That comfort has to do a little bit with the vibration. Okay. the vibrations, there are different type of vibrations, like some are sharper and some are a little bit thumper, like and this vibration makes you feel the ball better or not, like I was play testing a new prototype the other day, and it was really amazing because every time I finished stringing the main strings, I just passed my finger through them, to listen at the sound of it, like cling. And the sound of this one was so much sharper, like I thought, no, this string is gonna vibrate too much. It probably won't be good. I was thinking we spent too much of this prototype, and it's probably going to be really bad. So I put it in my racket, in my son's racket, and I went to the court. Sometimes we break the rackets in 5 minutes, the strings in 5 minutes. We realize that the quality is not good. We don't want to use
Mhm.
it. But in this case, we started using it and we loved it. My son and I were like, the feeling is amazing. So meaning that because of the feeling, you have better comfort in the string, because you can hit harder and your arm is not resenting it, feeling it a little bit too stiff, but feeling it so soft and so nice and so easy, So the comfort is really important. But in here, you're going to see that the comfort levels are really low, 65, 60, I mean,
Mm.
55. Why do we have such a bad rating at comfort with these copolyester strings? Well, copolyester has never been really comfortable. They never made copolyester to be super comfortable. And it's not that they are not looking for, but it's difficult to find the perfect comfort in the copolyester. Okay, the copolyester is made. The main material is polyester, and polyester is really stiff. So 65, 70, it's really high in a copolyester when we're talking about comfort.
Richard,
So yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. So, are there any adjustments we can make, like to make it more comfortable? Like, I don't know, like the tension or a different racket or something like that for these
Yes, of
copolys?
course. Of course,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, what you say, it's really important because first of all, how do many coaches make the copolyester more comfortable? By hybriding it. They put a
Hmm.
synthetic god in the crosses, and like this, the bed of the strings makes it more comfortable. Like we have strings like Sensation from Wilson and NXT from Wilson, and we have in our array of strings in at the Tennis Depot we have Micronite and Explosion, and we have Zero Gravity, and all these ones. The comfort levels are around 85. Okay, now you want to know which one has 100 in comfort? Natural God, But of course, not everyone's going to be spending $55 for just the set without the hand job, without the string job, So you have 85 in comfort with these other strings, and then you can make a hybrid. So you make a hybrid, and then you combine the comfort level from, let's say, hexonic power, which could be 65, and then you put the other one that is 85, and then you have a comfort level of 75, which is really good. It's so much better. Now, of course, you just said tension. You go lower with your tension. Okay, I don't know if you've heard about Manarino using 19 pounds in Miami at the
I
Miami
have.
Open. that
Crazy.
was that was crazy, but the truth is that it has to be really comfortable. If you can control the ball at 19 pounds, then that has to be really soft for your arm. But that's my idea. But I haven't used 19 pounds ever. I probably one day will, just just to see how it feels. Not because I'm actually going to change my tension to 19 pounds.
When you're 100 years
Now,
old, maybe.
exactly. Mm.
Yeah, good stuff. Such good stuff.
Now, let me tell you, of course, there are some rackets that are more comfortable. At Racketpedia, which Stringpedia is a part of Racketpedia, you can compare the attributes of tennis rackets. And I was amazed at something that you will probably all be amazed that there was not a single racket having 100 in power, 100 in comfort, and 100 in control. All the rackets are like 80 the most, meaning something really important. That is what a friend of mine, Fred Sakiwi, was telling me 2 days ago. The strings are the motor of the racket. So if you want your racket to be as fast as a Ferrari, do not use a string that is made uh, not for power, right? I mean, you really want the biggest power, go and look for a powerful string. That's what's going to make you run like a Ferrari. But if you want to go like a Beetle from the 60s, then you go for a less powerful string, a more control oriented string, and else, right? So this, from my point of view, was really important. This guy, Fred, he made natural gas for Pacific for like, I think, like 20 years until they closed the factory in New Zealand. And this guy was giving me all this amazing information about tennis strings that I didn't know, because he was not making copolyester, he was making natural gas from zero. So it was an amazing experience and adventure to speak with him. And we're talking about reopening a factory for natural gas. We in
Mm,
Genesis would love to have that. Signum Pro stopped having it because I think they were buying it from Pacifica. When they closed, there was no natural gas anymore from them.
yeah.
Now, I told you about the four more important attributes. Okay. Now, I want you to know that both in Genesis and in Signum Pro, we had been working hard to create more comfortable strings. When we made Hexonic Power, and it has all the important attributes including others that I haven't discussed, we wanted a more comfortable string. So we started from Hexonic Power to create a better string in comfort wise. So we created. There are three strings in our array of strings that are ultra comfortable. Okay. Outbreak from Signum Pro, which is amazingly soft. It has a 75 level of comfort, which is much more than the ones that we are comparing right now. Then we have Black Magic and White Magic. Those are the same string, different color, but the same string. They have as well 75 in comfort. And then the last one is the new one that we just brought in that has 75 in comfort as well. Okay. So for people saying, I love copolyester, I love the power control spin that a copolyester gives me, but I want more comfort without losing, let's say, the durability or tension stability, then Outbreak, Black Magic, White Magic, and New from Genesis, those are really amazing strings. Comfort, uh, when we mean comfort in a tennis string. Okay. Now, Mirbrand, what do you think is another attribute which is really, really important? Not probably for everyone, but there's a lot of people that is looking for that in a tennis string.
Tension holding.
Yeah, that's one. Mm,
Okay. Okay.
that is really important. Which other one would you think?
Uh, it's an interesting. Let's say maybe stability. Although I definitely want to hear your take on exactly what that is.
Okay, okay. Is well, from my point of view, durability is really important.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sure. Sure.
Now, not for all amateur players, but we sponsor a lot of colleges. We have many good colleges. I actually, my assistant, no, I mean my partner told me the other day that I think number one, two, and three from Division Two colleges are using our product. So that makes me really
Nice.
happy, of course.
Wow.
But
Sick.
I mean, these players, they don't like to be restringing every 2 hours or every hour.
Yeah.
So what did we started doing? Because it was not only them, but as well professional players that were complaining. Like I had one of these players from Argentina. He was telling me, "Hey, dude, I'm restringing two rackets every day. So at the end of the day, but he was restringing them himself. He has his stringing machine. But just imagine going to a future, playing the future singles, doubles, and then going back home and then restringing, So it was not a nice thing for him.
No.
Uh, uh, so we started working into creating a better durability tennis string as well. Now, let's say when we made Hexonic Power, the durability was really amazing. This means that other strings in the market of this level were lasting probably, let's say, 1 hour, and then Hexonic Power was lasting 3 hours. Okay, so we made something amazing by having such a long-lasting string. It could be even better than that. But I say at least 3 times more. But then we made Hexa Infinite and Hexonic 2.0 following what we made or achieved in Hexonic Power, and then the durability in those strings is unbelievable. I mean,
Nice.
I've had professional players that are top 200, 300, and they tell me, dude, I can't believe it. I put the string on Monday, it is Friday, and it's still on. I've never had a
Wow.
string that lasted that long, and besides felt still good with tension, stability, and else. Because what good is a durability string for if you have a tension stability of 50, and then you start playing with it, and then 2 days after your tension is completely lost, So which professional player is gonna like that, Of course, no one. And that is why we had been looking for really great durability combined with tension stability, but as well with comfort, because that was the other problem that we faced when we wanted to make a better durability string. They were sending us these prototypes. We were putting them into the racket, start to play, and after 20 minutes, my arm would feel really tired, And after feeling really tired, I don't want tennis elbow to start, Of course, after it starts feeling tired, I simply stop playing with it, I already know that I am getting tired because the string is too stiff, So of course that is not good. So if it does not have at least 65 in comfort, I simply throw it away. I don't want to have a 55 string in comfort or 60, because I don't want to have any problems with wrist or elbow or shoulder or anything because the string is too stiff. Okay, so if we find amazing durability in a string, and then this means that these players from the universities, not all universities have a huge budget, okay? There are some universities that have a tighter budget and they want a better durability string, but of course they don't want all their players injured by the end of the week, right? So we work really hard to create this great durability combined with the tension holding. Okay, that's exactly the way they call it at Stringpedia, and I like that because there's another attribute called stability. I would say tension stability before, but then I understood stability. Do you see that in stability, Alu Power Off is like 50, which is
Yeah,
really, really low?
it is.
Okay, how many games did Federer play with his racket before changing to a new racket?
Ooh, I don't know. Like 6?
7 games, because I
7.
think they
Damn.
they,
Okay.
they changed the balls every 7 games, so he
Yeah,
was getting a new racket every time
it's a
they
lot.
changed balls. So just imagine how well, because it was a poor stability string, right? I mean, but if you are Federer, or if you have the money of Federer, I mean, you can keep on restringing every 7 games. I mean, that's up to the player, Like, it just depends. If the player has his own stringer, and he can keep on restringing every 7 games, I mean, that's perfect. But in this case, we have a stability of 95, which means that the string feels great since you put it until it breaks, and that is really difficult to achieve, because if you see here, we have 95 in stability, and the next best stability string was Hyper G at 75, which is still 20 points below, right? But then in the other strings, we have even lower ratings, which means it's perfect for the player, professional player that is changing their strings every 7 games. But for the regular player, I think having a better stability like 95, it's the best way to go, right? I mean, that would be my point of view, and that was the reason why we had been working so hard to create better quality strings, because we want to play better, like you've seen me play, right,
Yeah,
my
good
friend?
player.
So
Yes.
I am crazy about playing, and I love playing the best possible. So when I create a string, of course, I'm creating it for the general public, but I'm creating it as well for my son who's 18, and I don't want him to be, I want him to make his best results possible as well. And I love having my best results in the tennis courts as well. So that's why stability is such an important attribute in a tennis string. My friend, I don't want to discuss the other two because I think those are a little bit more professional, and I think
Gotcha.
not everyone is interested in them. So, if you would like
Makes
to
sense.
see if we have any question, anything that we can start talking about, and getting, just one thing.
Yeah.
Uh, One of our strings, which is zero gravity, has 100 in power. Okay, so that was a
Ooh.
really impressive string because we were looking at the comparison chart between that one and Sensation from Wilson, which is a really well sold multifilament. And then we were seeing that we had a little bit better levels in some parts of the chart, and one of them was power. We had 100 in power in that string. So let's say if you combine hexonic power with that zero gravity, then you have 100 in control in the mains, but then
Hmm.
in the crosses you have 100 in power, and that is a
Oof.
really interesting bed for you to use in your tennis string. Okay, yeah, we call
Wow.
bed in the tennis string where the strings are at, right? Where the ball falls in.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's so impressive to see, the Genesis Hexonic Power Yellow 123 to have the highest ratings of like all of these properties. Really, really impressive stuff. So I'm sure y'all worked really hard on that. And yeah, we do have a lot of questions, so I'm excited about that. First one is Gordon. All right. Hello, Gordon again. Out of your range of strings, which plays and feels closest to natural gut?
Okay, well, it would be a lie. Natural gut is the only thing that actually really feels like natural gut. And the good thing is that I was able to compare it, through Stringpedia. So I put Stringpedia VAS Touch, and I would put it there, and then I would put our microfilament, which is Micronaut, and Explosion, which are really closer to natural
Mm.
gut than almost any other string. Great elasticity, great power, great comfort, but I still can't compare something like that, because let's say power was I think we were at 100 in power, but then in comfort, natural gut was 100 and we were at 85. Okay, so that's 15 points below. Like I can't compare something that is 15 points below, because if I would
Yeah.
have $1 million, or if I would have 850,000 $850,000, well, that there's a difference there, right? I mean, like I wouldn't complain having $850,000 in my pocket right now, but a million is better, right? So, and in other attributes, still, natural gut was perfect all around. I mean, like there's nothing better than natural gut. That's the truth. It's not only said by me; it's said by the biggest string lab in the world, which is in Italy. I mean, and I won't argue with that. Still, explosion on micronite and the new zero gravity, which was synthetic gut made of different materials and other synthetic guts, had been amazing lately. We had been selling hundreds of those reels a month, and it is because the
Nice.
quality is really there.
Nice. Love it. Awesome, man. Let's see. Gordon Tanner, what characteristics give greatest power to a tennis racket, and what is the impact of longer strings slash head size?
Okay, I want you to know something. Of course, the bigger rackets produce more spin, and that is completely logical. Even the thicker the beam is, the more power you have. Remember those in the 80s, there was, I think, a string racket called Thunderstick from Prince. It was so thick, like You couldn't even put it in the stringing machine. It was so difficult. But it produced so much power. Of course, it was so thick, right? Now, bigger frames, of course, produce more power and less control, and thicker frames as well do the same, right? And but I've seen rackets. I've seen players, professional players, using prestige rackets, really thin rackets, 18 by 20, producing a lot of power. Like,
Mm.
it is amazing. So a lot of it has to do not with the racket, but with the technique. One thing that is really important, because so much people comes to us telling us, "Hey, my son is injured. He has tennis elbow and he's 15. What can I do?" Of course, we give them a softer copolyester string. Sometimes we ask them to combine it, and usually that takes the problem away. But still, there's something really important, and there is a reason why you got injured. No string is as bad as having 100 players out of 100 getting injured or getting tennis elbow by using a certain type of string. But certain types of strings generate more often problems with the arm. Okay, so what I see with a racket to produce more power or energy, or what I think, is that you can customize a racket. You can put lead tape on it in specific places, and this is a huge subject that we couldn't cover today, but there are professionals that do this and can make a racket be more powerful or more stable. Okay, and this stability is really important, because sometimes you hit the ball a little bit off the center, and some rackets are stable as for you to keep still that ball into the court, even if you hit it outside the center. And there are other rackets in which you hit a little bit off the center and your ball is gone. It's going to the moon. So customizing a racket, putting lead tape to it, makes sometimes a racket to be more powerful, even if it's not a powerful frame. We've seen that in a lot of professionals using frames that are not powerful, and still the power is there, right?
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. Technique is huge. So I know you talked about this, but just see if you have any other thoughts about, the tension of strings, and obviously Manarino we mentioned.
Yes. Well, I was crazy because when I was playing at the age of 20, we were using 65 pounds.
Mm.
I left tennis for a while because I dedicated my life to photography for many years. Uh, but every time I was playing, I was doing photography. Let's say I was in a model session, a fashion session, in a fashion shooting. I was doing those photos. And still, while doing these photos and being in the place that I wanted to be with these beautiful models, don't tell my wife, but but I was still thinking of, wow, I would love to be in a tennis court playing tennis. I would love to be in a tournament, running all around, being completely exhausted with my tongue out and still winning some points. Like, for me, tennis was everything. It was my passion. So the photography was my passion, but I think I have a bigger passion, which was tennis. So
Awesome.
when I came back to tennis, nobody was using 65, but I was still putting 65 in my racket. And I was going to the futures, and some players from Europe were telling me, "Why are you using such a high tension in your racket?" And I was like, "Well, I've always used 65." They were saying, "Yes, but you are feeling the ball less with that polyester string that you're using. Why? Like, I don't understand that." And they said, "Yes, go lower. We're using 45, 47. You're going to feel it amazing. So I went down from 65 to 53, and love
Uh,
it. The truth is that I loved it at 53, but eventually I dropped it down to 49, and I love it even more. I'm
uh,
not, there was a little thing before they said more, higher tension, you have more control, less power. Lower tension, you have more power, less control. I don't see Manarino having no control at all, you know?
Right.
Exactly. So, I mean, strings are really important for control. So if you're using a really bad control oriented string, yes, of course you're going to have bad control. But nowadays with copolyester strings, it is not the case anymore. Probably it was with nylon and synthetics that we were using before. We were using a string called tournament nylon from Prince and synthetic God from Prince. And those strings probably did had a lot of lack in control when you were hitting, when you were lowering the tension. But with newer strings, you can use 45 and still have great control and probably the same power than as 55. You know, like kind of you kind of feel how much to do the swing to generate more power or less power. Okay, so I think that in lower tensions, the ball penetrates more and that gives you more feeling. And I think that feeling is really important for you for your control in the tennis court.
Awesome, awesome, great knowledge, Richard, as usual. Let's see what else we got here. Christopher, rackets need to be play tested. Unfortunately, many pro shops have gone out of business. As a result, many people now buy off the shelf. Hmm. Have you
Completely
seen
true.
that?
Completely true.
Yeah.
Yes, well, the truth is that we're becoming more of a digital world, you know, and
Yeah.
like, there's not that much competition, you know, like, there's, uh, it is difficult, you know, like I even see it. Let's say we're a little tennis string brand, you know, with a lot of passion. We really love this. I wouldn't be doing it otherwise, you know, like I, I love it. You know, every time we create a new prototype and I go to the tennis court, sometimes I can't sleep just to imagine how I'm going to feel that prototype in my racket next day, you know. And every time we make a new string that actually was play tested by many professionals and they all said, this is amazing, then we launch it to the market. And I love listening at the results, but this does not mean that everyone's going to go and run to buy our brand of tennis strings, you know? So let's imagine we make a new racket from Signum Pro, you know? How are we going to make it sell if people is only interested in the name of the brand, you know? Not in the quality of the racket. So, uh, I mean, how many players are actually using with a racket that is coming out of the shell? You know, like you can go to a tennis store. I would never imagine any top 100 professional going to a tennis store, buying 3 hit rackets and using that racket for a tournament because the racket that they're getting are completely customized, you know. Probably there are a few that have not customized rackets, but the rackets are customized for a reason. Now, when people goes and buys a racket, they probably don't even know that professional rackets are customized, and customizing or personalizing a racket can make them play better, you know. So they go and they buy a really expensive racket at $250, which probably was produced for $30, $40 from the factory, and they're only buying a racket because of the brand. Now, for us as a little brand, we see this all the time. This does not mean I'm gonna surrender, you know, I'm gonna give up, you know. I love this, I'm gonna keep on fighting with all my heart. But a lot of people uh, think about strings like a religion, you know. And this is funny, really, because I mean they only use one brand, you know. Before Berrettini was using Signum Pro, I was going to stores and they were saying, "But who's using it?" You know, so no, we don't want to sell it because nobody's using it, right? Now Berrettini is using it. I want you to know that these stores are not buying string because Berrettini is using it, you know, because they say, "No, I only sell these brands because these are the best brands on earth." Okay, that's perfectly fine, but when they make it like a religion and they kind of don't think about it, it makes it really difficult, you know, because the same thing happens with rackets. They're not buying a racket because that's a perfect racket for them, but it is because that's a racket that all their friends are
Yeah.
using, or that the racket that their favorite player is using. And I see players that completely, I mean, so many players using the pure aero, which I don't say that is a bad racket,
Right.
but it's not made for everyone. Like if it would be made for everyone, you would see 20 players in the top 100 using the Pure Aero, but you don't see as many players using the Pure Aero. I mean, in the top 10, you have only Alcaraz right now, but he's using a different version,
Yeah, the
not really
VS.
the
Yeah.
exactly. And probably it's even different, it's probably
Yeah.
a little bit thinner as well, not the one that you can buy. And I mean, well, Nadal just because he's injured right now, but still, not that many players use that racket. But if you go to the tennis club, you're going to see so many players using that
Oh
racket.
yeah.
Much more than 10% or 15%. Like it is amazing how people uh, brings these make these brands in their mind like something which means that's everything for them, and they don't even want to use something better because in their mind that's the only thing that is better for them. Now for me, producing better strings is my religion. Like, and if I find a really great quality string in another brand, I would never say, hey, don't use this one. I want players to play better. That's I want them to enjoy their time better in the tennis court. This is really good. Like a lot of people playing tennis makes them live better lives. That's my point of view.
100%. 100%. Love it. Christopher, another very good question. How frequently do you recommend strings be changed?
Okay, this is really interesting. Did you see the stability uh,
Mm.
attribute in the string? If the string has really low stability, like you saw in, let's say, uh, RPM Blast Rough and Luxembourg Alu Power, you see, I think it's like around 50, 55, the stability. This means that after, a few hours, the string is not going to feel as well. And then it's a good time for you to change it. So it just depends on that. If the stability is really good and the tension holding is really good, you probably don't need to change it that often. But here we see, let's say, I think at 75, the hyper almost all the tension holding are at 75, which means that after probably uh, 7 hours, if you haven't break them, the tension loss is going to start feeling, and then in the stability is even worse. So it means that probably after 5 hours, it's a good moment for you to change your strings if you're using these ones with a 50, 55 in stability. Okay. Now, I've seen people that they never change their strings until they break the strings, and I mean, it is a matter of education as well. I mean, like how many of us had been educated that we don't buy anything new until we actually really run out of the next one, like of the previous
Mhm.
one. Even with
Right.
rackets, like some of the rackets in the market, they start feeling not really good, after, 3 4 months, the racket has like a little vibration that doesn't feel really good, usually more in the commercial racket than the professional rackets, because the professional rackets are made to last for much longer. Now, these rackets that don't feel that good, they say, no, no, my racket is not broken, I will keep on using it, and they use it for 10 years, and probably the racket is completely cracked by the inside, but the layer outside is really good because it's I think it's made of like uh, I don't know how to call it, but that this paint, they put
Carbon
it into
fiber
an
or
no,
no?
no, 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 no. The paint is like what they use for pottery, that the paint outside in
Oh,
pottery, but it's like ceramic painting, So this
oh,
ceramic painting is really good and it's not going to break easily. So the racket, the fibers in the racket inside can be cracked, and still you're going to look it by outside and it looks perfectly, but it does not mean that the racket is feeling good, So if you keep on using a racket forever, but the racket is not feeling good, what happens to a lot of people that they do change the racket every time a new racket came out, they feel the new racket so much better, And it is not because the material is different, because they used to say that the new material was different. They don't say it anymore, They just say this is the new racket, but it's actually a new paint job, and they feel it's so much better. Why? Because the previous one was probably already cracked by the inside, and the new one is completely new, so they feel the new one's so much better.
Yeah.
The same thing happened in the strings. When you're not feeling the strings really good anymore, it's time for you to change your strings, you know. But if you're feeling your strings amazingly good, really lively, then the string is still alive. Let's say that.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. Let's see. Benji. And so, just as an aside, we had a session earlier today on tennis elbow with Emma Green, and so that was really fantastic. She had some great exercises for you all to do. But Benji says, I had tennis elbow with Babolat Pure Drive RA71 hybrid poly multi. Sorry, I had to
Uh,
sneeze.
don't worry though.
But thanks. Improved and shifted to Prince Phantom Pro 100 with hybrid poly multi 4850. No tennis elbow, but less control and power. So, what do you recommend?
Yes. Well, that's the thing. Uh, I remember I had one day a racket, a Dunlop racket, and this Dunlop racket made me hit the best forehands in the world, you know. But in backhands, it was so difficult, you know. I was not controlling the backhand with this one. And then I switched from this one to the Radical, and then with the Radical, my backhand was going amazingly good, but my forehand wasn't going that fast, you know.
Yeah.
All rackets have different attributes and different uh, shape, different ways in which you can hit the ball with each racket. So, of course, if you change the racket, you say, I'm having less of these, okay? Yes, you can improve it by having a more powerful string, you know? Of course, you can use, like I said, you could probably use a hybrid between Hexonic Power 1.23 and Zero Gravity and try to see if that helps. I wouldn't lower or higher the tension. I think the tension should be okay. But it is really interesting because uh, Pure Drive is not really a bad racket. We've got a lot more players complaining because they all come to us asking us when they already are injured from tennis elbow. They That's when they come to us and they say, I have tennis elbow, what should I do? So we've got a lot of guys coming to us that had tennis elbow, but they were using the Babolat Pure Aero, you know, for some reason, not that much the Pure Drive. And I don't know why. I don't know if the Pure Aero is a little bit stiffer or not. But if you're not having tennis elbow with the Phantom Pro, my friend, that means that you're playing tennis. And from my point of view, even when I'm playing bad, it's so much better to be in the tennis court than not being in one because I'm hurting from something.
Yeah, yeah, very true. Have to be grateful to be able to play healthy. Prince Phantom RA is 54, so very different from Pure Drive. I like it for comfort, yet control and power loss is concerning. Maybe I'll get used to it. Low 4-0 player.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
hopefully.
maybe. And well, the good thing before when there were a lot of pro shops that you could go and ask demos for was exactly that, that you could play test three or four different rackets, you know? And probably if you're not feeling great playing with this racket, that's exactly because that's not specifically the racket for you. Okay. Now, I haven't used Prince in a really long time, but the most interesting part about Prince is that I've never get anyone complaining about tennis elbow or wrist injuries with Prince rackets. So
Hmm.
I am sure they have to be good, you know, because a lot of people is using Prince nowadays, and I think Prince rackets have to be really good. I should start play testing some, you know. Probably they're really good, and it's just me that I haven't been able to do so.
Yeah, same boat as you, Richard. I haven't really play tested that many Prince rackets for some reason. But let's see here. Gordon, interesting as to the chart. I use an old racket in the wet today with Luxlon ALU Big Bang, or sorry, Banger Rough. Still good, but not as close to gut as Technofiber Biphase 1. What string of yours is closest to gut? You mentioned a few before, Richard. Can you remind
Yes,
us? Yeah.
explosion, which starts with an X, not with an E.
Yeah.
Explosion from Genesis, and Micronite from Signum Pro. Actually, in a playtest made in Germany, Micronite and NXT came out completely tied. So they gave the prize as the best microfilament to both. They couldn't decide for one, you know. So this is a really great quality tennis string. X1 by Phase was in the list of the strings that were play tested, but they didn't came out with the number one or two best microfilaments in the world.
Awesome. That's amazing. Great work. Gabriella, hello again. I've been using a Prince Diablo 11.5 weight for many years. I want to change to Yonex Pro, but the weight is 10.6, but in the head. Currently with tennis elbow, what's smarter on type of tennis racket? Hmm.
No, that I mean, I would be lying if I would tell you exactly what I know. What I what I what I've done because I'm crazy. I love these. You know, I'm passionate about these. Is people send me videos of them playing tennis,
Mm.
and I tell them some advices. Let's do a little explanation here. Okay, I see these, and this is what I see most often when players are getting injured. Instead of sending the stroke like this and hitting the ball here, many of them sometimes they have a heavier racket than what they should have. So when the racket is heavy, instead of having their arm like this to hit, they put it like this, and then they send their stroke like this. But look at this, your elbow is right here. So all the stroke, instead of being, like when you hit the racket, all the stroke goes through all your body. It stays here when your shoulder is, I mean, when your elbow is bent like this, you know. So a lot of players, when I see those videos, they are bending their arm in that forehand, and I see that when they bend the arm here, all the energy is staying here, and then that's when they more often get tennis elbow. Okay, so my recommendation, of course, yes, you should try other rackets, of course, try other strings as well, lower your tension, but as well, we should see your stroke. You know, if you're getting injured in your backhand, there could be sometimes that instead of sending your arm softly to the ball, you're putting a lot of energy in the body and then leaving the elbow in here a little bit bent, and then that could be the problem in the back end. Okay, so the truth is that I can't tell you which is the perfect racket for you or the perfect string for you, but play testing different ones could be the right way to go. Now, why do I say that sometimes the racket can affect? Not because uh, correcting the technique wouldn't help you, but I got injured in my wrist really bad when I was
Mm.
using Babolat Pure Aero, but really bad. You know, I was going to the tournaments, I couldn't do anything. You know, so I thought I was going to leave tennis for good. You know, I said, okay, well, I can't play tennis anymore. You know, the pain is too much. You know, in the night, the pain was amazing. So then Head gave me a sponsorship, and they sent me the speed rackets from Djokovic, and I had them new. You know, I wasn't going to play anymore, but I had them new. I put string on them, so I said, "Oh, let's hit some balls." You know, even if it hurts too much and I can play, let's hit some balls. And I started hitting some balls, and the pain was not there anymore. So in that moment, I realized that probably my racket was probably cracked by the inside, even if it looked perfectly by the outside. And that was my personal experience. That's why I think that sometimes the rackets could be bad by the inside, and the vibration was hurting my wrist, you know. But it never happened to me again, you know. So since I changed to those rackets, the speed, and after that the ball call, I had never had any wrist problem ever before, no, ever after. And I probably won't use bobble rackets again. But I'm not saying that bobble rackets are bad, because they're really good. It's just that for me, you know, probably they didn't work, you know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely not for everyone for sure. But they do make nice frames. Let's see. Trying to remember which where we're at. So, but yeah, a lot of great questions so far. Oh yeah, so Brad is interesting. I had to Google this brand actually. What about Zyx strings? Is it how do you say it? ZX? Have you heard of that
I
one?
No, sorry, I am really sorry. Let me tell you
No problem.
something that is really interesting. Uh, Many string brands are related to other brands.
Mm,
Okay, uh, there are some secrets in the world that are confidential. But let's say when we bought Genesis, we realized that Genesis was producing some of their SKUs with other tennis string brands of really great quality. And that was really interesting for us, you know, because we thought they had their own everything. And it is not the case, you know, like there are some factories, but some of these factories are not actually producing the strings from zero, but getting the formulas already from one brand, and they just get the formula and make it happen and make it into a string. Okay, so they get the formula and they make from the formula the string. And so some of these brands, their formulas are only for them, you know, and some of these brands are willing to say, hey, do you want a new string? I make this new prototype and I'm not intending to launch a new string, but I can sell you this new string, you know. So that could be the case with this string. I don't know if I've never heard of them. I'm sure they don't have a factory, so this should be the same case that they're already buying from another brand or one of the big factories that already have many formulas. Since I haven't tried them, I really can't say anything about them. Sorry about that.
yeah, no worries. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think they are on Tennis Express, so must be decent here. Let's see, Mike. What is the relationship between gauge and tension? For example, if I string Hyper G at 54 pounds for a 120 millimeter, I think, or what tension would I use for a 115? Hmm.
I've never changed stations when I'm changing the gauge. Okay,
Mm.
so I when we play test some prototypes, sometimes they are 125 and sometimes we request 120 as well. So we use them all at the same tension. I've never had any issue with the different tension. Now I have a question for you all. Why do many players go for uh, lower gauges? You know, like let's say this. I've heard this. Oh, I'm using a lower, a thinner gauge because this is softer for my arm. You know, and this is what a lot of like tennis stores and coaches say. But I've seen all the attributes at Stringpedia, you know, and I see the comfort levels, and I don't see that 1.10 is 80 in comfort compared to 1.30 being 50 in comfort. That's not the case, you know, like they're almost really similar, you know, even sometimes thinner gauges are less comfort than thicker gauges, okay? So this is my personal point of view with thicker or thinner gauges. When you find the perfect string for you, let's say you play test different strings and you find one string that you like the most. It makes you generate better power, speed, everything, you know, like we actually at the Tennis Depot are really open to help people finding between our array of strings the perfect string for them so we can sell them like a sample pack so they can try different strings. They tell us their type of game, so we send them exactly what they could need, you know. After playtesting four different ones, now, what about gauge? You know, like yes, you find that uh, let's say Hexonic 2.0 is the perfect string for you. You tried it in 1.23. Now try it in 118 and 128 and feel which one likes feels better for you, generates better speed, better power, better whatever, you know. Like if you don't want the string to last so long and you're using still 1.28, don't worry, break it whenever you are ready to try to get a new string job, you know. But I still use the same tension every time I change the gauge, and I have never had any issue or problem about it. But I've got well, there was this coach. He told me, look, I was getting injured with turbite. I haven't get many people getting injured with turbite, but this coach was
Hmm.
getting injured with it, and he was going with a lower gauge each time, and still he was getting injured and injured and injured and worse every time. So I told him, look, I'm looking at that the comfort level of this one is I think like 65. What about using a 75 comfort string that we have, the new one? Try it out. It's not 110, it's 120 because he was already using 110. And he tried this one and he just called us and bought 10 reels because he said, I love it. All my students love it. So we're going to be selling a lot of this one to all our students now. That made me really happy. He stopped having tennis elbow. I mean, that's everything from my point of view. Like if it works for you, it works for you. And for some people, it doesn't. For some people, keeping the same tension in two different gauges is perfect. And for some others, they have to be higher tension. And the only reason why I would say higher tension with thinner gauges is because usually thinner gauges have a little bit less tension holding, because it's thinner. So because of the tension being on the string could probably makes them lose the tension a little bit more.
Hmm. Yeah, great stuff there. And just to clarify, Brad says that ZX is a material. It's ether erketone. Sorry, I can't say that. It is a monofilament with natural gut resilience. Interesting. Hmm.
That is really interesting.
I might
Okay,
have to look that up.
CX. Let me see if by any chance we
You
can
piqued his
find.
interest.
Well, it's because I don't know if Racketpedia play tested already this brand, like because that's a good thing about
Sure.
Racketpedia, that it's not just because I could say anything about my strings, like I can say my string has the best feeling in the world, right? And then you go to Stringpedia and then you find a feeling of a comfort level of 50, and then I mean that it was nice, uh, let's say marketing, but is it true? I think
Yeah.
that could be a problem. CX, uh, but
Yeah. It's like a type of string, apparently. Or sorry, a type of material.
yes, but
It's a
CX, I put the name CX here, and they didn't have a single string called
like 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 I see an
CX.
Ashaway ZX Mono Gut 16L string reel. Like I just Googled it. So it's interesting.
Okay, but
ZX
I put
material. Hmm.
CX on nothing. Like there's no.
Hmm.
Now I want you to know. Well, we haven't put a
I know.
name to the material made uh, uh, for zero gravity, the string that I told you, the synthetic gut. We call it synthetic guts. Many of our distributors say that it is not a synthetic gut because they have many synthetic guts, and this one is not like a synthetic gut. The core material, it's a new material that we developed with the factory in Taiwan, and it is amazingly soft. But let me tell you what, it has 100 in tension holding. And I don't think there's many synthetic guts that have 100 in tension holding. So we made it amazingly great in tension holding, 100 in power and 85 in comfort, which makes this one of the most interesting strings that we've launched into the market. I still recommend it for a hybrid, not I didn't like the strings, like synthetic guts to be moving and then you need to be getting them back to their center. So that's why I recommend it more in hybrids. But hopefully
Yeah.
we'll get to listen more about these SciX and give you better feedback next time.
Yeah, 100%. So I have some more start comments. So is it the string or the stringing that most important?
I really don't know. I really can't tell. I was stringing a professional tournament. It is really funny because I've strung at many professional tournaments, futures, challengers, and else. And this was a W40. And some players, not all, just a few, would get to me after their match, like, oh, you strung my racket, Brad, and that's why I lost. I've got it almost in every tournament I've strung, like not really professional tournaments like ATP 250. Players there are not like this, but in lower levels, they sometimes get upset with the stringer, which I take all the criticism completely right. I think it's a great way to improve. But I've I got this one of these girls told me, look, this is wrong for her to be coming and yelling at you saying that it was your fault, because we go to some tournaments in some places in which they string so bad our rackets. Sometimes we have 10 pounds less than actually the real tension, and we still need to pay for the string job, and we still need to go and play with that, and sometimes it's really bad, for them, because not all the tournaments are really professional, like not all the tournaments were really well thought. So if these girls are able to play in a professional level with tensions that are completely off and still win, that means that yes, we can't say that the stringing was bad, and sometimes the string is really bad. I've seen horrible things in Instagram. I mean, there are some stringers that they show how the rackets were brought to them, and it is terrible. Like you say, how could someone string like this? Even at my stores, I have like four different tennis shops. Sometimes we get rackets with 6 knots. Like how could they make 6 knots in a racket? Like incredible. Sometimes they cross one string from the middle to the knot point, and I'm like, how could the string be crossed from the middle of the racket until the knot hold? Like I don't understand it, but still people can go out and play good, with it, so I think that, I mean, anyone can get used to any bad stringing job in the world, and even to any bad string in the world. Like there are really bad strings out there, and people get used to them, and they actually think that that string is really good for them. Like they say, no, 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 I won't change. This is the best string in the world. And then you see the attributes at Stringpedia, and you say, poor guy. Like I mean, like he could be playing so much better, but there are people that they're resilient to change. They won't change no matter
Mm,
what.
yeah. Yeah, you got to be adaptable. Let's see, Gabriella, is there a simple guidance of tension slash type based on player level and age? There are too many
No,
variables, probably.
it,
Yeah.
it, it has so much. The variables are amazing. Like you
Yeah.
you see players coming to string the rackets at 60 pounds in the same professional tournaments that other players are stringing at 35. So
Yeah.
it is. Let me explain. Strings, from my point of view, are very much like when you go to an ice cream shop. Okay, so you get there and you see they have 35 different flavors, or 72 different flavors, or 100 different flavors. Which flavor is bad? Probably they all taste amazingly good. They all are delicious. So why would you choose one day uh, uh, mint chocolate chip, and another day vanilla, and another day you only want chocolate? I mean, there's so many flavors. And in the strings that we have created and that we sell at the Tennis Depot, both from Signum Pro and Genesis, we are completely sure that all these strings are really great in quality. We have play tested them all. We have get really good results with them all, and that's why we sell them. There's many prototypes that we play tested for Genesis that we never sold them. Like they were probably really good in some aspects, but really bad in other aspects. And we don't want to sell anything that is not going to be delicious for the player. So even play testing different strings sometimes is really fun, and different tensions. I don't know, because it hasn't been my case. I'm always using 49 pounds. I'm going to start play testing different tensions. So next year I will give you a better feedback about that. Okay.
Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. Thanks, Richard. Brad, what about launch angle for strings? Like different Launch angle.
Wh-
Any thoughts?
what? I don't understand. What's that? What do you think
Oh,
that
oh,
means?
like trajectory of the ball, like sometimes certain. Yeah, I guess maybe you hear it more on rackets. I'm not sure, but like with some strings maybe as well. It'll go higher up rather than like a lower trajectory and all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that is really related to the type of stroke that you're giving, right?
Mm,
I had a coach that said you have to make a drill in which one ball you hit the ball over the ball and the other one under the ball. Okay, so when you hit under the ball, of course you need to make like this and generate more spin, and then the ball will go higher. The launch angle will be higher. But then when you go over the ball and then you're hitting like this, boom, then the ball goes lower, right? I mean, that's my personal point of view. And then I train these because certain balls, when they're really deep, you can't try to hit it as fast as it's coming, but more to generate spin and go try to hit it from this angle instead of this angle, right? So that's what I know. I don't know if tennis strings or tennis rackets are the responsible for that. That's the truth. I've never thought of it.
yeah, yeah, no, no, I hear you. I mean, in my experience, I've seen some variations. I guess with rackets mostly. I haven't tested the strings out where you have a stroke. Like I guess the ball tends to like loop a little bit more with certain rackets, but yeah. Let's see what else we got. Gabriella, for kids where they don't break strings too fast, should they restring every certain number of months?
Yes, for kids, of course, yes, because of course the stability, the feeling of the string is lost. So it is really interesting when you mention kids. I love this idea because of course my girls are kids. They are 10 and 8, and they
Mm.
are playing tennis, and they're playing tennis with copolyester strings from our brands. And then there are two kids at Instagram and Facebook that you can find, Reine, Kito and uh, I forgot their names. I can't believe these are two Japanese kids. They
Oh
had been
yeah,
using they
yeah.
had been using our strings since they were really little. Kato and Rina. Sorry about that for forgetting that.
All good.
These kids, they have been using our strings for a really long time, using full bed copolyester since he was 6. He had been using full bed copolyester. Many coaches say, "Yo, that's ridiculous. They're gonna hurt their arms." Well, these kids haven't hurt their arms. My girls are not hurting their arms, but of course, these strings that I'm telling you are 75 in comfort, which is the highest comfort level that a copolyester could have. They're like we saw in the chart, like all the copolyesters are 55, 60, 65, the best ones. Well, these ones that they're using 75, which is really comfortable, and which would be as well the result of putting, let's say, a string copolyester that is 55, combining it with a synthetic gut of 85. So they're using these strings, having no issue in their arm at all. My girls are not having any issue in their arms at all. And if you're using a really great quality string, of course, if they are not breaking it, I recommend it to restring at least each 6 months. Like if they're not breaking the strings, they are 8 years old, 7 years, each 6 months at least. But if they're playing in the academy where they're going at, or the tennis academy, like 12 hours a day, a week, probably to restring every 2 months would be better.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Great advice, sir. Whew, wow, over an hour and a half. We did it again.
No kidding. No kidding. I didn't see the time.
Yeah,
It,
it's
it, it,
nuts.
it, it is so nice to be speaking about the things that I'm passionate about. But
Exactly.
if you think it would be the right time to close it, it's perfect for me. I think we discussed many interesting things, and I think the general public will have much fun. listening at all this and understanding more about tennis strings. Now,
Yeah, def
I think we had a like a special. We were going to give something for free for the
Yes,
attendees.
yes, yes. Thanks for reminding me, Richard. So I really appreciate it. Thanks to you for this. So if you do pick up the All Access Pass, and I'll drop a link in the chat, then Richard has been so kind as to give you a set of free strings. You just have to pay for shipping, and these strings are worth up to $15. And additionally, Richard's going to try to match the right strings uh, to you. So all you have to do is just email Richard, and I'm going to put his email address up here in a second. But I believe it's richardsignum@icloud.com. Is that right, Richard?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, so it's really nice of Richard, and we've talked a lot about strings, and then now Richard's gonna help match you with the perfect string for you. So again, free set of strings just for getting the all access pass, which already you're getting amazing value. You get a lifetime access to all 40 plus of the videos, including the one today, and the audio files and transcriptions and the implementation sheet. So it's really crazy value. So I put Richard's email here, and but you also have to verify that you've um, gotten the all access pass. So I'm going to send Richard a list of everybody who gets the all access pass, so he can make sure. But yeah, that's super nice of you, Richard. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm just getting the page up here now. But I mean, any sorts of closing thoughts before we adjourn for today?
Well, specifically about these, the single set that we're going to be giving away to the guys that bought the all access pass, the girls and the guys. It is really important for me not just to send you whatever I have, more of it in my inventory or anything. For me, this is a real passion. So every time you write me and you tell me, hey, look, I have this type of game or this type of issue, or I'm looking for more power or whatever, then we can find specifically from our point of view which would be the best tennis string for you. And if you would like to play test 4 or 5 different types of string, like I said before, we could sell you a special price, that special price, like a sample pack for you to try different string. Of course, this meaning or trying to be an adventure for you, like I understand that every minute of your time in a tennis court is invaluable, and you want your best results every time. So playtesting strings, like sometimes if it is not the perfect string for you, could make you lose some games or something. Yes, I understand that. But I always see it as an adventure, like if you are able to find how a string can be better for you in certain aspects of your game, that's always really nice, and it's meaningful as well for tennis as your favorite sport to be better, or not only for you, probably you're a coach and you have students and they can be benefited from these, it's going to be our pleasure to help them out as well.
Awesome, awesome. And yeah, I just want to highlight a few really nice comments here. So Omar, thanks Richard for all the great advice. Already great presentation, learning a lot. Great to know how to choose the best string. Thanks for your advice. Brad, thank you for the opportunity for this discussion. I hope you'll learn and educate yourself about the ZX strings. Yeah, I'll definitely take a look into that. And then thanks for the Emma Green session as well. So yeah, this was fantastic. And again, highly encourage you to get the all access pass so you can get, lifetime access to this session and all the others. And then again, Richard is so kind as to give you a free set of strings if you just pay for shipping. So his email is here, and then obviously you can email me if you have any questions. And yeah. So, Richard, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure as well, and hope to see you in person at some point. Hopefully, we'll be able to hit with you as well with some Signum Pro or Genesis strings, of course. And yeah, wish you all the best. And thanks everybody for coming. So, yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great one, my friend.
Thank you too.